mix things that will work and with things that won't. So you're going to find there's some that are prime. I don't want to pick a prime one to start with because I don't want to be exasperating you and you thinking, why in the world isn't this working? Let me start with number 9. 9 looks good. Okay, so I'm on page 353 if you want to kind of flip over there. Or if you don't have a book, you can just follow along and maybe write all this down. This one problem is going to take a while. Yes, I know. Okay, so what we're trying to do is totally factor this problem. And we don't have any tools to factor it because how many terms are there here? 5. We know how to do factoring by grouping with 4 terms, but we don't know how to do it when we've got 5 terms. So we need to figure out a way to think about this. And we actually have all the tools we need. It's just that you need to know how to put the tools together to factor at this point. So I've kind of seen that synthetic division is a quick way to break something down. If I just had something to start with, and that's the problem here, they don't even give us a hint about something that might divide into it. Well, I can figure out if this thing factors, what will divide into it. I can get a list and I can be sure that my factors will be in this list, and this is what I do. To create my list, I take all the factors of the constant term. What's my constant term here? It's the number on the end. It's the constant again. It's just the plain old number. You kind of need to know that. I'm going to start calling it the constant instead of saying the plain old number on the end because you guys need to know the math lingo, okay? And I'm going to divide it by the coefficient, all the factors of the coefficient of the leading term. What's my leading term? Does anybody know what I mean when I say leading term? It's the term with the biggest exponent. We always want to write these, first of all, from the biggest exponent down to the smallest one in order like this. If we don't start writing things in order, we're going to be in a world of hurt. The leading coefficient here, remember, the coefficient is the number in front of the x term. The biggest term we have is x to the 4th, and there's an invisible 1 there. Well, this is kind of nice because if I want to list all the factors of 24, if you think about it, it's plus or minus 1. We have to consider both the positive and the negative factors. So plus or minus 1, and then that would be with what? Plus or minus 24 would give me 24. Plus or minus 2, and then that would be with plus or minus 12. Plus or minus 3. 3 times 8 is 24, so plus or minus 8. 4 goes into 24, so plus or minus 4, and then plus or minus times 6. And I think that's all the factors of 24. Now I got to think of all the factors of what's on bottom. This one's easy because it's just 1. So all the factors of 1 are just plus or minus 1. Now if I'd had a 3x to the 4th out in front, I'd have had to put plus or minus 1 and plus or minus 3. And I would have every number on the top, both the positive one and the negative one, over each possible number in the bottom. That would create a huge list here of things that could go into this. But if something goes into this, if a factor goes into this equation, it's going to be listed in this list I just created. There's no way anything else is going to go into it. Now, what are these numbers? What I'm going to do with these numbers is I'm going to think of them as being part of what we call a linear factor. Or what a linear factor is when I put an x, because it's x to the first term. X to the first term is always called the linear factor. And then minus k, where k could be any of these numbers. I'm basically going to try to divide this polynomial by x minus all these numbers until I can get it factored down. That's a lot of numbers. That's a lot of choices. Not a way to do it in the calculator, sorry. Okay, so what I'm going to do, though, here's the deal. The book is usually nice to you, not always, but they usually, if you can just get one to get you started, it's usually not so bad to keep going. So usually I start down with plus 1 and then minus 1 and then plus 2 and then minus 2, and almost always one of those goes into it. Every once in a while they'll give you one where it doesn't, but usually they're pretty nice about it. So here we go. Synthetic division. And I'm looking at, again, we're looking at number 9, right? Isn't that what we're doing? Yeah. So I'm just going to copy them down because it's going to take some time and room to write all that, and I want some room to work here. So it's x to the 4th plus 2x cubed minus 13x squared minus 14x plus 24. And I remember that my list had plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2. So I'm going to start with, first of all, I'm going to start with negative 1, okay? So I drop down my 1. Negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. 2 plus negative 1 is 1. Negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. Negative 13 and negative 1 is negative 14. Negative 1 times negative 14 is positive 14. Negative 14 and positive 14 is 0. Negative 1 times 0 is 0, and 24 plus 0 is 24. This did not go in evenly. Does anybody know how I know it didn't? Yes, there was a remainder here. If that number will have to be 0 if this is going to go in evenly. Have to be 0 to be a factor is what I'll write here. So negative 1 didn't go in there. Let me try 1. The thing about it is, though, at least this is a little faster than doing the long division. So I'm going to write my coefficients again, and this time I'm going to divide by 1. Bring down my 1. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 plus 1 is 3. 1 times 3 is 3. Negative 13 plus 3 is negative 10. 1 times negative 10 is negative 10. Negative 14 and negative 10 make negative 24. And 1 times negative 24 is, looky there, negative 24. What do those add up to? Yay, I found a factor. What does my factor look like? It is x minus this number I divided out here in front. So it's x minus 1. If I take the result and write it down, I know I've got this factor, so that's part of my answer. But if I want to keep breaking this down, I still got a negative 24. When I started out, didn't I list all the factors of 24? So I still got my list. Let me just try and see what might go into here. Now, x minus 1 might go in there again. I don't know, but I'm going to try to pick something else. I saw that when I did the synthetic division with the minus 1 up at the top, it didn't work, did it? I'm not going to do it again, because if it didn't work on the whole thing, it's not going to work on part of the whole thing, okay? So let me start with maybe 2. I'm just going to pick 2, and then I'll try negative 2. Eventually what happens is we get this down to something that we can factor. Let me drop my 1 down. 2 times 1 is 2. 3 plus 2 is 5. 2 times 5 is 10. You add those up, it's 0. Is this one going to work? Nope. 2 times 0 is 0. I'm not even going to bother writing down what that's going to be because it's not 0, so I really don't care, okay? Let me maybe try dividing negative 2 in it. 1, 3, negative 10, negative 24. 1, 3, negative 10. I know I was going to forget it if I don't. Let me try dividing negative 2 into it. Bring down my 1. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. 3 plus negative 2 is 1. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Negative 2, 10 and negative 2 make negative 12. Negative 2 times negative 12 is 24, and they add up to 0. Yay, I found another factor. My factor is x minus, and what did I divide by? Minus 2. So it becomes x plus 2. Okay? So now I know I've already got x. What x wasn't it? X plus 1? What was the first one that y'all wrote down?
X minus 1.
X minus 1. And I got x plus 2. So those are 2 factors. Now, I could keep using synthetic division, but if you think about what I got left, if I put, I first started with the x to the 4th. I broke it down to an x cubed, so this is now x squared. If I wrote that down, it would be this. Do you want to keep trying all those numbers to see what goes in? No, you don't. Synthetic division is great. It helps us to get going kind of fast, but then we're happy to be rid of it. If you think about this is just x squared plus x minus 12. How could you look at factoring that? You know what to do here. I see some of you shaking your heads. You're thinking what? Charlotte, what are you thinking?
It would just be x, it would be negative 4 plus 3.
You're close. I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be opposite. You're thinking, what do I multiply to get this negative 12? Do y'all realize this is a trinomial and we can factor those? What do I multiply to get to negative 12, and the same two numbers add to that 1 in the middle, right? Well, Charlotte said it's going to be a 4 and a 3, and she realized that what she picked was opposite. If you think about it, how would you put 4 and 3 together to get 1? Yeah, 4 minus 3. So there's my other two factors. Remember what I did with those when I found them? Is I just said that was a positive 4, and I stuck the plus 4 with the x, and then I wrote an x down, and I said that's a minus 3. We just took that fourth degree, it's called fourth degree because the highest exponent was 4. We just took that fourth degree equation that had 5 terms, and we just broke it down, and here's our answer. I'm going to write it in purple. It's this x plus 4 that we just got, and this x minus 3, and then from earlier when we did our synthetic division, we had these other two factors. Now, in order to do this, I had to kind of keep up mentally where I was with this, right? I started with the x to the 4th, and I broke it down to an x cubed, and I had to realize that after I broke it down, the next time I broke it down, it was an x squared. I kind of had to, at this point, know that I was dealing with a square to actually get to stop doing the synthetic division, didn't I? So you got to keep up with where you are, because you really don't want to go through all the numbers you could possibly have done on synthetic division because there's so many of them. But at least it gives you something to start with. And most of the time they're nice to you, huh?
And that's the fastest.
That's the fastest that can be done.